Either way, I don't really care.
Or keep talking about it,
Or
but
keep
record
talking
it.
about it and record it. Either way.
We'll just have content.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, the name High Rollers was already taken for a podcast about D&D, so we can't. I don't want to take their shtick.
High fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right. So let's see. Last week, you guys finally had made your kind of escape from the Phasrus caverns of the Underdark, and had started to head towards the Sverfneblin. There we go, said it right. City of Blingdenstone, accompanied by your new kind of squire, we'll say, although he is technically a knight for his own purposes. Adrian, the mega hunk elf that you guys caught taking a shower. He's been kind of toiling along with you guys and trying to help, but not really being much help because he sort of stands in awe of your guys' abilities. And also, later on, you guys met a kind of curious gnome that is probably the most terrible spy you've ever met. He was not very good at concealing what he was doing. He was very forthcoming and honest with you guys. Both terrible qualities for a spy. So it actually takes you guys about 6 or 7 days of relatively uneventful travel through the tunnels that your friend Qualen, Qualen Silverthread is his name. It takes about 6 or 7 days to travel through the remaining tunnels that are on his map to get to the actual city. And on the way, you do encounter, kind of on the outskirts of where the city is, you start seeing signs that perhaps there's life in this city or signs of settlement going on. And as you've traveled over the last 5 or 6 days, between Qualen and Reggie, looking up articles on Wikipedia, you are able to determine a few things about Svivneferblin and Blingdenstone. I'm going to say it wrong so many times tonight. Let's scroll back up here. Scrolly scroll. So he tells you that Blingdenstone is actually a very ancient city, although about 50 or 60 years ago, there was maybe a few decades longer than that. It's not super clear in the records of the recent history, but at some point there was a drow invasion and essentially massacre of the city. It's known that about 100 years ago, the last known census, there we go, of the Blingdenstone told them that there was about 9,000 or so of these deep gnomes living in the city. It is believed that only about 1,000 of them escaped from the Dark Elf attack, and this was due to the deep gnomes aiding a rather well-renowned drow outcast named Dritz Doerden. He actually encountered their city after about 10 years in the Underdark. And, Airyainth, maybe you've read, maybe your character's read a little bit about this in the legends of Dritz that have been kind of printed and passed around the realms as sort of like, almost like a romance novel. You know, they kind of have gotten passed around in little, like, serial novelizations of what Dritz did, maybe, 10 years prior. Somebody wrote it down and was like, oh, it's this crazy story. You guys got to read this.
Yeah, she spent her adolescence dreaming a little dreamy about him.
Yeah.
Secretly to herself.
Now, Dritz's current whereabouts are actually unknown. It seems like he's kind of gone the way of many legends of the Forgotten Realms and disappeared for a time. No one's actually seen Dritz for about 15 years now. So, you hearing this name come up is actually kind of a shock. But, it's history, so things happen. And it turns out that the drow who were pursuing Mr. Doerden, members of his former house in Menzoberranzan, the drow city that is actually to the north of where you guys just were, separated by a mere 40 or 45 miles or so of Underdark caverns twisting and curving from this deep gnome settlement. So it makes sense that these drow would have made their way to Blingdenstone and done this, but in the last 15, 20 years or so, a group of surviving deep gnomes has traveled from the city of Silvery Moon and begun the resettlement process. This has led to accounts of, let's say, not pleasant experiences for many of the groups of adventurers that they hired as lead kind of guards. And there is actually, out of character here for a second, there is actually a cool little adventure called Reclaiming Blingdenstone that was available when D&D Next was a thing. So just before 5th edition came out, they ran a playtest of it called D&D Next. And one of the modules that they released for it happened to be the reclamation of Blingdenstone. So you guys are just slightly after that time. So it's a fairly new old settlement, we'll say. Reggie could tell you that the current population is somewhere around 300 or so of these gnomes. With Reggie relating this, your friend here, Qualen, is kind of scoffs at quite a bit of this information. Like every time that he brings up how the deep gnomes were aiding, Dritz, he would kind of be like, "Oh, poppycock! There's no way that they would do such a thing. They would have most likely run him out of town. It's probably just hearsay that they did that." He seems very like staunchly anti-deep gnome.
I look at him and raise an eyebrow and say, "What's your issue with the deep gnomes?" Out of curiosity.
He says, "God, if you ask me, they're a bit too dwarfy. Living underground, not in the forest like good forest gnomes, or not in the hills. And real gnomes have houses above ground. They live inside of hollowed trees, and they tinker. These strange, oddball cousins of mine don't tinker. They just dig. Ugh."
Airyainth shrugs and says, "To each his own, I guess."
Yeah. The more time you've spent with this guy too, the more you've noticed that like he's not a particularly pleasant gnome as far as gnomes go. Like he's not necessarily off-putting, but he's not as friendly as you might think that a gnome would be from tales you've heard. Like I don't know how many of you may have encountered gnomes in any adventures you've had outside of our campaign here, but they're normally a very friendly and very jovial race, known for their interesting experiments, and this one seems to spend most of his time poring over a few books that he has, mostly the histories of the deep gnomes, as written by some forest gnome, probably. And as you encounter some of these areas, as you get close to the city, one of these particular areas, you see what appears to be an open mine shaft, and next to this open mine shaft is several large rocks, and about a dozen or so of these deep gnomes, all kind of sitting together, eating lunch, it looks like, maybe taking a break from work for a moment. And as you approach, they all kind of stand warily. None of them draw their weapons, but they all are very on guard as soon as they see you and your group. However, if you'll remember, Qualen has disguised himself with an illusion to also look like a deep gnome. So when they see him, they sort of relax a bit, and they say, "Well then, who are you, and who's your friends?" And Qualen looks, and he says, "Hang on, I will talk to them in their native language." And he takes a step up from about 30 feet away or so, and puts his hands around his mouth, and he goes, "Verdi, verdi, bork, bork, bork." To which several of the gnomes begin laughing, and they say, "Why are you speaking the old tongue, good sir? Us deep gnomes haven't spoken the verdi-gurdy-hurdy in a very long time." Qualen looks kind of abashed at this. He's sort of like embarrassed. "Let's Didn't realize they'd adopted the common tongue. Dear me. Well, well met, friends, he says.
Maggie pipes up and says he's quite a historian, and she says the word historian in the way that you say the word nerd.
Yay, my coffee delivery. So yeah, you as you guys approach the miners, you can kind of see several of them are kind of covered in this white dusty substance, and in the air kind of hangs this cloud, and you can taste salt on your tongues just from the thickness of this dust. You actually have like this salty taste. And one of the miners actually says, "So then, what brings you to the Swift Pick mines?"
Magical teleportation.
One of the gnomes kind of nods knowingly and says, "Been there."
Yeah, anyways, we're just passing through. Do you know how we get to the surface?
Says, "Me? No, got no reason to go to the surface. Any of you boys know?" They all kind of, no, I don't know. They say, "Perhaps somebody in the city would know. You could always talk to the, looking for a name here. Looking for my NPC names. Well, you can always talk to our leader."
Where would we find him or her?
One of the miners says, "Well, I tell you what. We're actually sending our cargo out just in a moment here after we finish our lunch. Would you care to break bread with us?" One of them hands you a kind of wrapped up package that it essentially looks like maybe steak, maybe chicken. You're not really sure.
I break it.
It snaps in half with a loud crunch.
Thank you.
Aye.
Maggie, whose player just recently remembered that she has a create food spell, thanks them and creates food to share with them.
Nice.
What kind of food you creating, Max?
Oh, let's see, 45 pounds. Bland but nourishing, although maybe Airyainth could help with that.
Airyainth uses a predigitation to make everything extra tasty, and with a combination of minor illusion to make it look good too.
She's definitely going to make kind of typical of her hometown, so seafood and Mediterranean vegetables.
Nice.
45 pounds is a decent amount.
Sounds pretty filling.
Yeah, I mean, these miners are they're quite shocked, assuming that you share some of this food with them as well. They're very thankful. They're kind of used to this strange meat that they've given you, which they tell you is Roth meat. It's a type of almost like a cattle, but it's sort of reptilian. It's something that they grow down, that they will farm down here on occasion. The Drow are well-known Roth farmers as well. The one gnome that's been speaking up introduces himself as none other than Dasco Pickshine. He is the overseer in charge of the general operations here at Pickshine Mines. He says our predominant exports are salt and spell gems.
Airyainth perks up at spell gems.
Tell me more about your salt.
Says, "Oh, we've got the finest salts you can ever find. We've got volcanic salt. We've got pink salt, brown salt, green salt, blue salt, each of them with a different salty taste." And he's like he's handing you handfuls of salt, and then he's like stuffing like a small handful of salt in his mouth.
Maggie's tasting each.
Airyainth goes over and asks about spell gems.
Okay. He says, "Oh, spell gems. Yes, they're quite useful, although a bit hard to find. We find them here from time to time. We find more of those in the White Shell mine as well. That's run by, of course, one of my other cousins. But yes, spell gems are an interesting thing. They can take a magic user's spell powers. You can cast a spell at it and store it for a later use. Very handy if you're a powerful wizard or sorcerer or whatnot."
I am very interested in finding in acquiring some of these spell gems if you would be willing to part with any.
Says, "Oh yes, well we can't sell them direct here from the mine. We've got rules about that sort of thing. But in the city, uh, there's there is a shop that'll definitely be able to help you out."
I say thank you.
Says, "Very well. Well, boys, I suppose we should be going if we're finished with lunch." And he turns and he snaps his fingers, and this dozen or so miners kind of gets up, and about half of them go back into the mines. Clearly, they're going to continue mining, and the other half begin to grab wagons. And as they do, the four large boulders outside of the mine entrance suddenly uncurl themselves and stand up. And before you are four large creatures with sort of deeply cut facial features, large, bulky arms that sort of don't come up much from their sides, and they begin walking over to the carts and getting hooked up, two to each cart. He says, "Ah, I see you've never seen a Galabdur before. Really useful if something comes trying to sneak up on us."
Airyainth looks visibly impressed.
How much for one of them?
He says, "Oh, if you've got to ask, you can't afford them."
Okay.
Airyainth kind of giggles at that.
All right.
She pulls out the $100,000 black opal and just does it like that scene from Labyrinth with David Bowie just moving it back and forth on his hand.
Nice.
They're like picking their teeth with $100 at this point.
Yeah, you got like a gold coin that you've hammered into a toothpick. Yeah.
Like, hey, do you guys have somewhere for this like $1,000? It's kind of putting me down right now.
All right. So yeah, it's only a few more hours travel from the entrance to the mine, and that's when you guys arrive here, where you can see on your screen, hopefully, in front of the city of Blingdenstone, perhaps. Although you wouldn't be able to tell it from what you're looking at. Right now, it just looks like a box canyon. Before you are huge stalagmites running up thousands of feet into the air, and a huge open cavern above you, although fairly narrow. And you are on a wide and tall set of stairs. It goes maybe 100 feet in a straight line. And the thing that you find most obnoxious about these stairs is that they are sized for gnomish feet, making them difficult terrain for any medium or larger creatures, which means it takes you twice as long to get up the stairs as it does the gnomes, who stand impatiently waiting for you at the top. Their carts...
Airyainth just kind of floats up.
Yeah, she floats up. Their carts, they actually hook to a series of stone sleds, and they let out a high-pitched whistle, and the sleds begin to be pulled up like almost a ski lift.
Maggie messages their imposter friend and is like, "Well, looks like your cousins have some ingenuity after all."
He says, yes, that's very basic tinkering, though. I don't think that's really anything advanced. I mean, it's
Have you
just...
made one?
Well, we haven't had to. I mean, we live on a flat piece of forest. I suppose we could probably rig up like a simple block and tackle or like a snatch block and do something similar. Yes. And he gets very like, you can tell he's kind of like about their ingenuity.
I look at him and say, I think you may have to reassess your original opinion of these folks.
He says, we'll see. I don't know. I still don't. He's kind of in hushed tone saying this, trying. But again, he's not really that quiet because he's terrible at being sneaky. So as you get up to the front gate, finally, uh, the Desco lets out a second set of whistles, and at this point, uh, the Galabdur settle themselves down back into their rocky formations outside the gate. And you are privy to something kind of rare, which is the opening of the gates at Bladenstone, which you see is something like this. Once you reach the top gate, you can see where the sleds have been pulled up to an area about 100 feet higher than what you are currently standing at, and they are making their way along kind of this separate path, slowly still being pulled along by the force of whatever is powering this pulley. And so out of the side of the rock, kind of out of the side of this large rock formation, forms a large steel door, which then slowly swings open. I do apologize for the kind of fuzziness of this map. It was the best one I could find online. Which is ironic, because it's actually the D&D Beyond map. And you can see what lies in front of you is what could be construed almost as a maze or a labyrinth of tunnels, which you are very quickly led through by Gaskell. And you're able to quickly approach the exit down here. Once you are past this portion of the maze, which you notice several more of these Galabdurs in, clearly they are posted as guardians, and kind of examining them, you sort of get the vibe that these are some sort of rock elemental creature that these gnomes are in control of. And upon reaching the second gate, another set of whistles is sounded, and you can now see that there is a wide, winding tunnel behind this gate as it opens. Flanking the gate are two stone towers embedded in the cavern walls. You actually see a few faces of these deep gnomes peeking down from each tower. As Gaskell waves at them, they give an all clear and the gate finishes opening. You head into inner Blingdenstone. This part actually goes much lower than the area that the maze was in. It sort of dips up and down, and you can see that the tunnel has about a 30-foot high ceiling, and embedded in its walls are many brightly colored gems of various colors, spaced at about 30 feet apart, and about 15 feet above the rough-hewn floor. And Gaskell looks at you, Airyainth, and he says, see, we're quite rich in spell gems. There's many of them there. They help protect our city. And since you see, any invading force that tries to come in now, they'll be met. Any of us deep gnomes, any of us, can simply say the proper command word for the gem we wish to use, and that spell will be cast for us. Isn't that interesting? Again,
Very. Erina says, and she also asks, is it only a one-use time, or is the spell able to be cast multiple times?
he says, oh no, see, it's quite interesting. I'm not sure how familiar you are with magic. I mean, clearly a bit, you're flying, but
I'm quite familiar.
I've heard of
the
it.
way that they work, mechanically speaking, is it takes the charge from the magic user, and well, to put it in out of character terms, you literally target the spell gem, the empty spell gem, with a spell that you wish to store in it. Material components still need to be used, but you can actually use half as many material components if it is required. And you cast the spell, you use your spell slot, and that spell is stored indefinitely in that spell gem until you use it. So once you use it, it does not break the spell gem, it is simply drained until another spell is put into it.
Gotcha. So if I use a slot now to use it later, so
Yep.
like it'll still be in a gem even when I have a long rest later and all that good
Yep,
stuff.
it's kind of like a spell battery in a way. It's like you charge it and then it's
Airyainth
ready
is
to go.
very interested in grabbing some of these spell gems.
Does this work for cleric spells as well?
He says, "Oh, yes, our priests use them quite often to
Oh yeah,
do handy little things."
I get some of those.
Yeah, Airyainth and Maggie are both very interested in spell gems.
Adrian kind of looks at them and he's like, "Those are pretty. I like pretty stuff." Right.
Airyainth just kind of sighs. It's like it's such
Yeah.
a shame that
He's pretty, but he's really dumb. So as you step through the end gate of this area, you can see that several points on the wall are covered in what appear to be like spikes or nails coming out of the wall. And Daskell tells you as a second line of defense, the fact that this tunnel dips down low means that it can either be flooded quickly or doused with like a poisonous gas cloud in order to repel any invaders. It seems that these gnomes are taking the threat of the city being invaded very seriously these days, as you know, they are quite aware of the recent history of the city. It's pretty fresh in their minds, being only 40 or 50 years ago that their people were essentially massacred on this site. So they are now almost paranoid levels. As you walk through this final gate into the inner city, you can kind of see some of these gnomes milling about. No.
Just gnoming around.
Yep. They're certainly not gnome alone.
wah, wah.
Hmm.
Oh, even Amanda told me to shut up from the bedroom on that. So yeah, as you can tell, gnomes are quite tiny folk. Hopefully I got them relatively to scale with you guys, I think. So you are kind of regarded cautiously, but seeing Daskell with you, he says, "Well, I hope you enjoy our fine city. If you're looking for drink, well, there's I believe it's he tells you that there is a tavern and inn nearby. And if you are looking to do any sort of trading, you can go to the Trader's Grotto, located located just to the east of where you are now. The temple that he spoke of, he says, if you wish to, looking at Maggie, he says the temple, if you wish to perform any sort of worship, is called the Ruby in the Rough, and it's located just to the south of here. He says, to the far south, you'll find mostly just settlers, homes, various peoples that live in Blingdenstone. He says the north, however, we have quite a few problems with. You see, when we began to resettle the area, we encountered a group of, well, let's just say they're not friendly like the other deep gnomes that are here. He says these are holdouts from the original attack on Blingdenstone. Some of the survivors are rumored to have come into contact with a group of were-rats shortly after the battle, and they have made their home in the Gold Whisker Warrens to the north. He says, we have blocked off the entrances, but they still somehow keep finding their way into the city and raiding us. It's probably a matter that one would like to take up with our leaders. I'm gonna grab the book and look it up in the book.
Did you say were-rats?
Yes. No
Maggie-
were-rats.
Maggie shudders.
Is that the only way out of here that's north?
He says, oh, no. Actually, you just came in the only way out of Blingdenstone. He says, we are quite secluded here. Quite secure. How can I not find? There's the NPCs list. He says, you'll want to talk to the Digger Mataks, most likely. Dorbo and Seni. Husband and wife team. They're not quite the king and queen, but they may as well be. They're sort of our de facto leaders. They were some of the first settlers to return here. It says if you go there to find them, they're going to be somewheres around either the barracks, the Ruby and the Rough, or possibly down in the staging area of near Rock Blight. Now, Rock Blight's another dangerous area. You may wish to stay kind of away from there without an escort. We've had a few parties go missing in there, and we're not quite sure what's going on there. As you can tell, we haven't been able to reclaim the entire city, but we're on our way. I am pretty confident that if I keep my men mining and we keep exporting, then we'll soon have enough wealth and riches to really retake the rest of this cavern. We'll drive these were-rat weirdos out and, well, be able to figure out whatever the hell's going on down there. Oh, and keep an eye out for oozes. There seems to be some sort of an incursion of them lately. They've been popping up all about. Strangest thing. Wouldn't think they'd be able to get in, but they must have found a hole somewhere.
An incursion of what?
Oozes.
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 Maggie asks what those are.
Well, they're, how do I explain what an ooze is, he says. He sort of hawks a loogie, spits on the ground. He says, they look kind of like that. Except they're real mean. And much bigger. Qualen at this point is absolutely disgusted that this gnome just spit on the ground. He's like, ugh! It was like retching. Because he thinks it's... He's like making a show of how offended he is. And at this point, he looks at Qualen and kind of... What's his problem?
Well, he's a historian, you know. He's bound in books. This boots on the ground stuff isn't as familiar to him.
He looks at Qualen for a moment and he's like, which family are you from? Qualen begins to stammer. He's like, I am the silver thread. I mean the
Maggie cuts in and is like, it's a long story, and we don't have to dig up that difficult past.
Okay. Make me a deception check with advantage because you fed this guy and his men. You liar. Although technically you're not really lying. It is a long story where he came from.
All right, 23 altogether.
Okay. So he just kind of looks at you and he shrugs and he goes, whatever. There's weirdos everywhere, I suppose. Well, you folks be having a nice day and enjoy your stay here in Blingdenstone. I'll be seeing you. Goes walking off, probably to go up towards the receiving area from where these carts are now making their way down. All right. Qualen looks at you and he says, "Well, I suppose I should be off to do my research. I would bid you all a fond adieu. Perhaps we shall meet again. Good luck with your endeavors to reach the surface." And he begins to turn and walk away.
And it's like good riddance in a sense. He was a very poor spy.
He thanks him for guiding them there and tells him to behave himself. Said, I hope this. I hope you've learned something from your interaction with them so far. You might need to question your biases.
Appreciate you, bruh.
Okay, and he sort of looks he looks displeased at this thought, as though he is very predetermined in his sort of prejudices against these guys, obviously. But he begins to wander through, making very like scribbling in a notebook, stopping and very obviously scanning the different gnomes that he's passing by, writing down a note, looking them up and down, and then scurrying away very suspiciously. They all sort of look at him kind of like, what the hell is this guy's problem? And then they just turn back to what they're doing as he scurries away. And he is now out of sight. Just flip him upside down and leave him there for a minute. So yeah, he suggested that you guys go to... he says that there is... Or you had been suggested to go find the, Digger Mattox. He told you that Dorbo would probably be working somewheres along the staging area, which is to the east, I think. And his wife would most likely be in the residential area. Yeah. So right around here where it says 10, that would be staging area. And any of the 12s would be 12s and the 13, I believe, are the residential caves. There we go. He says that there is also, essentially the palace is Digger Mattock Hall, named after the two Digger Mattocks. However, that is probably not your best bet to find them. They are most likely not there. That would be down here, versus 14.
We're looking for them in order to find the exit. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you're in their city, essentially. It's generally kind of, like, he sort of tells you, it's like he would have told you, it's generally, like, good courtesy to introduce yourself to essentially, the de facto leaders of these people. And that any questions you have would probably be best directed to them, or to the priests at the Ruby in the Rough.
Yeah. Well, Airyainth is definitely interested in talking to somebody about both getting out of here because she really wants to get out of there, and those spell stones.
Okay. Yep, and he told you that right over here at 7 is where the traders area, the traders grotto is. Yeah, you guys, right now you're standing, there is a very narrow cavern that would probably require you all to kind of squeeze through in order to get to the south. Or you can just head to the north and the east to head towards Trader's Grotto.
Do we want to talk to the leader first and then do our shopping, or do we want to do our shopping and then talk to the leaders?
Might as well do leaders first. Maybe they'll hook us up.
Yeah, that was my thought as well.
Okay, so would you like to go try the Ruby in the Rough first, or search through the residential district to try to find either of the Digger Mattocks? Which one would you like to try?
He votes for the temple.
Airyainth doesn't really care either way, as long as wherever we go leads her to spell stones and out of here.
I'm assuming Tohan is still munching handfuls of salt.
Oh yeah.
Like got a bag. He's just dipping hands in there, just shoving salt into his mouth. He's like getting very thirsty.
This is the saltiest thing I've ever had. One time I had a big bag of salt.
I spelled also created 30 gallons of water, so he's probably chugging and pissing every 5 minutes.
Which is weird. Do Dragonborns have like regular anatomy, or do they have like a cloaca? So like a bird, do you just go when you gotta go? I don't know how that works.
I got Dragon Balls. Okay.
Excellent. Important questions are being answered tonight. All right, so if you guys, I'm assuming are headed south then towards the temple. It sounded like that was what you were planning. As you come upon it, you can see that this temple is fairly plain in its construction. It does seem to be made out of smooth stone or some sort of plaster, perhaps. Just running your hand along the wall of the temple, it's not like most stones you've encountered. It actually feels almost a bit soft and chalky on the outside, and taking your hand away, it's very dry. And you can see in a few spots where large cracks have come out of the temple wall, and you can actually see aggregated stone inside of it. It would be what we would call in the modern day concrete. Which is not something common to the realms. It exists, it's just not super common.
It's, you said modern day call it what?
Concrete.
Oh.
Because why the hell not?
All right, I'll go fucking at it all.
So let's see. Despite the desecration of the Drow invasion and decades of scavenging and raiding in its aftermath, the old city's honored dead still rest securely in the catacombs beneath this temple, as is blatantly displayed on a sign. Tombs below in big flashing neon lights, leading you to again believe that these steep gnomes are much more tinkery than perhaps your spy friend would have led you to believe. As you approach the front door to the temple, you see a nervous young novice kind of standing there doing his best to heal minor wounds on certain miners that have come through. He's kind of also got like a collection plate out. He's doing a little like prayer. He's trying to be like a one-man band for this temple. And as he sees you approaching, he says, "Good day and well met, travelers. Glyphic Shroomlight at your service." He bows deeply.
Are there any like grievous injuries around? Or major
No,
deals?
this is like, kids that fell and scraped their knee, and like a miner that maybe like got hit on the head by his buddy's pickaxe or something, but like he's fine. He just got smacked in the head. Got a concussion, but that's easily curable. But the young acolyte is clearly in above his head. And he looks at you and he says, "Well, what brings you odd travelers to our fine city? We don't get many tall folk in here."
We were teleported.
That old story, yes. I like how everybody in the Underdark
I feel like a
just
broken
accepts
record.
this.
I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. we didn't want to be here. All right, like.
He says, "Well, is there something I can help you with?"
We're looking for whatever the names are.
Spellstones.
Dorbo and Seni Diggermatok were the people, and yes, Spellstones is the other thing. So if you ask him about the Diggermatoks, he says, "I just actually saw Dorbo a few moments ago. He said he was headed home for a bit to get some lunch, and then he would be right back at his post. As far as Cinny, I believe she is still wandering about the residential districts trying to assist the settlers in any way she can. I do believe that she had said something about some sort of a haunting in one of the houses there that she was going to try to look into.
Ghosts?
He says, yes, the ghosts of our ancestors are actually still quite prevalent in this area. And as soon as he says ghosts of our ancestors, you literally see like 8 or 10 kind of spectral figures be like, ooh, we're ghosts. And he's like, shh. And they just suck back into the stone.
Airyainth is just has an intellectual curiosity about this whole thing. She's like, that is very interesting. Have you figured out a way to communicate with him?
He says the problem is we've tried to talk to them, we've tried to exorcise them. Nothing really seems to work. I mean, obviously this was a site of great violence and death, and they say that ghosts are bound to the physical plane by that sort of expeditious end. So we have yet to really make any real thorough conversation. He says, watch this. Hey, ghost. And one of the ghosts goes, ooh, at him. And he's like, so how did you die? Ooh. Was it scary? Ooh. It's like, see what I'm dealing with?
I'm
Aaron is
pretty
look-
sure we had some ghosts in hell, and we got rid of it because I hit it really hard with an axe.
He says, ah.
Airyainth
Well,
turns to Maggie and says, do you got anything for this?
I guess the thing to do would be to go find the queen lady and see if she could use some help. Maggie does want to go in and just like do a quick, consecration, which is just make a little fire and make a little food on it in the temple or on the outside edge of the temple.
I
yeah.
mean, have you guys tried hitting it with an axe?
Glyphix says he would really prefer not to dishonor the memory of his ancestors in such a way. However, any aid that they could be given in driving away the ghosts in a peaceful manner would be much appreciated. He says that they have had a bit of luck when they have found the deceased bodies of their ancestors and laid them to rest in the tombs. He says, unfortunately, many of the bodies were consumed over the years, and that's, I think, where the persistence comes from. Without any bones to lay to rest, there's no way to settle the spirits. One of the ghosts is hovering around Tohan going, ooh, ooh, ooh. It's really annoying.
If I use comprehend languages,
punching
would
the
that
ghost.
make it so that I could understand the ghost?
Are these ghosts speaking ghost?
Both common.
You could certainly
Are
try.
they speaking celestial or abyssal?
Tohan, did you want to try to slap the ghost, hit the ghost, whatever?
Oh yeah, if he's good enough of him, I grill.
Yeah, he's like over your shoulder, like he's like if you were reading a book, he'd be like looking over your shoulder, like reading the comics in the newspaper.
It looks like you're writing a letter.
Yeah. So as you attempt to strike the ghost, your hand passes harmlessly through it, and the ghost goes, ooh, and this time there's a little more sarcasm on it.
Ooh.
I just start digging through my pack to see what I can grab.
Airyainth, out of curiosity, tries casting comprehend language to see if she can understand the ghosts.
Okay. When you do, suddenly these comical oohs and ahs that are coming from this handful of ghosts turn to high-pitched, shrill screams. Only you can kind of perceive this. Everybody else still just hears, ooh. You, however, hear, oh my god, run for your lives, they're gonna kill us all! Ah, hide the children! Things like that. It's rather unpleasant.
I say, hey, whoa, calm down, guys. Can they understand me, or are they just in a loop?
So now all of the ghosts that you just spoke to, that you addressed, um, I would say they turn their attention to you. So now it just looks like there's like 4 or 5 ghosts all looking at Airyainth, being like, ooh, ooh, like that. Um, but what you would hear, Airyainth, is more of the same essentially. Like they acknowledge that you said something, but they don't directly respond to it. Like it's still just mournful wails, screams, death throes, that sort of thing. It's really like it's very mentally unpleasant.
But do I understand that they're are they like reliving their deaths, or are they trying to warn us of something?
No, it seems like these ghosts are most likely caught in the throes of their murders.
Gotcha. I basically I at that point I'm just like ugh, and I turn off the spell and I relay to the the gnome priestess or what priest whatever that what is actually going on with them, that they're just in a loop of their death.
He says, "Yes, I was afraid of as much. Ah,
I pull out my
perhaps."
Qual's feather token and throw that in the air and summon a giant flapping fan, and that creates a strong wind.
Excellent. So the all the ghosts in front of you, like all of these ones that have been oohing and eyeing, are now blown back into the temple through the concrete walls.
That's better.
I turn to Tohan and roll my eyes like, is that really necessary?
I couldn't punch him. I didn't try the axe though.
Fair enough.
Um, so Glyphic looks at you and he says, "Yes, these ones mostly seem harmless. However, we have had a few reports of something a little more malicious than just these specters. These are more, I believe the term you would use on the overworld would be poltergeists. You see, we had a family that moved in recently in the residential area, and they were driven out by objects being thrown about their house, wails in the middle of the night, doors slamming, even some rocks crumbling down from the top of their house when they'd go outside. We believe that
Sounds
perhaps
scary.
this may have been a particularly ne'er-do-well one of our ancestors. It's true we're generally a fairly jovial people, but they're just like any people. There are evil members of our society, as much as I hate to say it. Perhaps he was one of those, or she, who could not let go of that hatred even in death.
Hatred is power in itself sometimes, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed. He says, "Well, if there's nothing else I can do for you folk, Maggie, you are more than welcome to enter the temple. There is an altar where several small trinkets and a lot of little small mushrooms and things have been laid, much as many of the temples that you've been in throughout the realms. These are just tributes to the deceased in an attempt to kind of convey peace to them. And the priest tells you that you are more than welcome to perform any ritual as long as it is not one of evil."
Well, she just has her normal, make a little fire and make a little food on it.
Okay.
You can kind of ritual.
And for that, we
Sounds
will
cozy.
say I will award Maggie an inspiration point as you allow the light of Hestia to penetrate this space. One thing that I did not mention as you walked in, Blingdenstone, in stark contrast to the Underdark you've been experiencing, is not just cold bare stone. As a matter of fact, most of the walls that you've seen are covered in decorative tapestries, plants. All throughout the streets, there are actually large cages with fire beetles hanging in them to light the way. It is not a super bright light, but it is not as dim as just the phasers lit caverns were. It is actually pretty warm and cozy in this city. It's, we will say, better than dimly lit. Like it would be lit to the point where like a human can see just fine. There's no need to use any light spells or anything like that. So the priest tells you, yes, he gives you good directions to reach either the Digger Matak Palace or the residential area where he believes that Seni Digger Matak would be. He also tells you that there are some interesting points in the city if you have time to stay and check it out. He tells you that the name of the tech. There it is. The Foaming Mug is run by a young deep gnome named Tabby Foamstrap, and she would be most happy to have visitors, as most of Blingdenstone's gnomes are far too busy working to go out drinking. It's not really a dry town, but there's only one inn, if that tells you anything. And he gives you directions to that, telling you that that would be number 16 is.
Airyainth asks the priest real quick, where the best place to get the spell stones is. Like if there's a particular dealer that is the best to deal with.
He says, "Oh, well, yes. In general, in the he says that in the Trader's Grotto, there is a person named Kazook who deals almost exclusively in spell gems. He seems to have some sort of an insider edge when it comes to acquiring them from the mines. There are a few other dealers, but most of them are more so collectors than dealers. It seems like the magic users are fairly sparse amongst the gnomes, or at least amongst this particular group of gnomes, and that you would be probably best to go to Kazook. He says you'll notice the stall when you see it. It's pretty much covered in these things.
Shall we go? Do we want to go see the queen or the king first?
He wants to go see the queen because it sounds like she's dealing with this ghost thing.
Yeah, Airyainth is quite kind of
What Maggie
curious
said.
about that from a academic sense as well. She loves that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, so which one were you going for?
Queen, if
Queen.
everybody's agreed.
Oh, yeah, the queen.
Okay. Just get this guy down. Glyphic down here. Is. Alright. Alright, Adrian through this is he's kind of looking on with wonder. He's looking all around himself, and as you guys begin to head to the south, you head down into Inner Blingdenstone. As you walk past, you can see that there are, in fact, houses cut into several of these stalagmites. And throughout the cavern, there are spaces that narrow quite a bit to the point where, Tohan, you actually have to, like, turn sideways, like, to take your backpack off and, like, put it through first. And then there are wider passages that allow you to walk two abreast. But you make your way down, and as you approach the residential area, you can see several more of these gnomes, some of which are standing outside of a home. They sort of go inside upon seeing you. As these residents are not really exposed to visitors very much, they're maybe a bit more distrustful. Perhaps they don't go directly inside, but they definitely like huddle up to their stoop. They go up into their doorway and kind of are peeking out at you. And yeah, as you approach this area, see a little bit better. You can kind of tell that these residences go back into a series of caves, wherein the first one that you find of these. It's weird, it's not really listed. Yeah, making your way through. I should have covered up all my numbers. You do in fact come across a very well-dressed gnome. She appears to be holding some kind of a maybe like a staff, something quite ornate. Holy crap! I even pulled out the right one. Look at that. And she walks with a bit of gallantry. Let's see if I can. Yeah. She's tiny. That's not going to be a big help, but that's essentially what she looks like. She's very tiny, purple-haired, nice black skirt, and yes, she carries this kind of large mushroom stem with several strange leaves attached to it. And she is just leaving a group of these settlers, and she sees you and begins immediately making quick strides towards you, approaching you with what appears to be some intent. She says, "Oh there, travelers. What brings you to my fair city?"
So that's your cue.
We got teleported here.
We're just
So,
fine. We're
Should I make a fucking sign? I don't know. Is it?
we're looking for a way to the surface, and we were also told that you were having some interesting trouble with poltergeists.
she says, "Oh my, yes, news does travel fast in a small community, doesn't it? Well,
Did you try hitting the poltergeist with an axe?
she says, no, but I have added it to the list, trust me. I'm quite fed up with the situation. You see, it seems that um, an, a family moved into a house just north of here. And they've had to move out and move into one of the other abandoned houses because they could not stand the constant barrage of objects being thrown at them. I was just on my way there to see if I could do something about it, but you say that you are looking for a way to the surface, eh?
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, right now we are a bit pressed, as it were. We're dealing with some issues from the were-rats in the north, and a few disappearances in the east. Not to mention this.
We heard of these troubles.
Yes, the strange incursion of oozes that seem to be plaguing us as of late. Perhaps if we could convince you to help us with a bit of these problems, then maybe we could free up some of our men, send a guide with you to send you to the surface, for we do know a way. We have a pretty secure trade route, actually, that goes up towards Silvery Moon.
Could you throw in some spell stones too?
Oh my, well, you'll have to take that up with Kazook. He's really the cultivator of those, but myself, I only keep these three. She pulls three gems out. All three of them are these kind of beautiful green emeralds, and they shine with this iridescent glow to them that just absolutely radiates magic from them. They seem like they are probably have very high-level spells stored in them.
Airyainth just really, really wants some of those stones.
She says, "Unfortunately, I can't part with these as I use them in my daily chores, but perhaps if you were to help us, we could convince Kazook to offer a discount on some of his wares, as obviously that which benefits the community also benefits Kazook. At least we would hope he would see it that way." She kind of rolls her eyes when she says it, and you think maybe there's some history between her and Kazook there of dealing with each other. After all, again, it's a settlement of like 300 people that have been here for like 10 or 20 years, so yeah, they probably all know each other pretty well. She says, perhaps you and my husband should talk. Please, would you escort me to my home? I was just on my way there for lunch. I believe I'll be meeting him there.
Guys, are everybody good with that?
All right.
That's fine.
Right, so as she leads you to her home, this actually descends down a set of stairs. A little bit hard to see, but there actually is a set of stairs there. And as you enter, she leads the way, and you hear, "Honey, I'm home." She sort of laughs, and she goes skipping over to her husband. I said his name was the other Digger Matuk. Should have written it all down at the time. Flip it back to that same page. Dorbo. She says, "Ah, Dorbo, my love. Please, I'd like to introduce you to our newest guests here in Blingdenstone." She says, "I'm sorry, I don't believe I caught all of your names." Adrian steps up first, and he's like, "I'm Adrian. How you doing?"
Dohan, son of Rohan.
Airyainth of Brimwood.
Benita of Waterdeep.
I'm Megamemnon, cleric of Hestia.
Ah, excellent. And Dorbo looks at you all and he says, "So what brings you to our fine city?" And Senny goes, "They were teleported."
Yep, wasn't the plan.
Dorbo immediately kind of nods and goes, "Yep, heard that one before."
We should get T-shirts.
We got teleported here, and all we got was these stupid T-shirts. That's what they would say. Dorbo is somewhat short, even for a gnome. His wife actually stands about 6 to 8 inches taller than him, and he is quite round. We'll say he looks almost more like a hobbit or a halfling than a gnome. Perhaps there's some ancient, I don't know, crossbreeding, interbreeding. I'm not sure, but yes, he's hybrid. I'm not. He essentially listens to your story, the same story you've been telling since you got here, and he sits back, kind of pushes his plate away that he's been eating, and of course they offer you food, but you guys have just eaten, so I'm assuming that everyone probably either says no or sits down and eats more. Either way.
He doesn't say no to food.
Chow time.
Let's see. After listening to your story, he tells you that it is true that they have been dealing with these ghosts for quite a while. Although the ghosts are not really their main concern. He says even this poltergeist that I keep hearing about is not of the utmost importance, if you ask me. And at this point, his wife looks at him and says, "Dear, the safety of our settlers is our number one priority. I shouldn't have to remind you, of all people, that." he says, yes, yes, dear, but don't you think there's greater threats? You know, him? And she says, oh, don't even bring that clown up. He says, no, I think
Wait,
they just...
there's clowns now? Because I don't fuck with clowns.
He says, no, not a literal clown, but pretty damn close. You see, one of our settlers, he, when we first came down, we were essentially looking for any deep gnome that would be brave enough or crazy enough to come with us, and unfortunately, the one that we had with us that happened to be crazy enough was perhaps a little too crazy for us. You see, uh, he likes... He would, how do I explain this? He began with simple things like stealing food, but then one day we encountered him with a hoard of the stolen food that he had allowed to rot and mold, and he was sitting there talking to it, almost as if he was having a conversation. It was making everyone very uncomfortable. And he became more bold and more brash as time went on, even a few times causing actual harm to other deep gnomes, and I could not stand for it, so I exiled him from the city proper and told him that he must go to the northern area if he wished to stay. He has, but every once in a while he seems to just pop up here and there and make threats. Likes to call himself the Pudding King. I don't know what that's all about. When he says it very uncomfortable, like, well, look at me, I'm the Pudding King.
What would you like us to do?
Says, oh, I don't think he's a real threat. He's just kind of a crazy bastard that lives out in the dangerous areas. But
Could he have anything to do with the slimy issue?
I mean, I suppose that's a possibility, but I don't think he would be someone with that sort of power. He just seems like a bit of a loon to me.
Fair enough.
But you never know. Crazy folks are often allowed to be in
Just not-
power.
Is there some
I
place
just
that
thought
would be
maybe because
healthier
he
for
called
him to
himself
be?
the Pudding King.
He says, no, our main focus right now is split between these constant attacks from these were-rats to the north, our ancestors, if you will, although I loathe to call them that, the creatures that they are now. They come in, they steal our wares, our food, they sneak about at night. One of the children even was bitten by one of them, although our acolyte was able to heal the wound and prevent the disease from spreading to the child, so we caught it in time. Still, I cannot allow such creatures to roam about these caverns unfettered. That's why we blocked the two entrances to the north that we could find, but they seem to be sneaking in through a tunnel somewhere. Perhaps if you could locate their entrance, then we could seal that up. Alternately, I wish that I knew what they wanted. Beyond just stealing things, they seem to be almost angry at our very presence. I don't understand. We are of the same kin. We should be able to at least semi-peacefully coexist. I don't want there to be war between my cousins and myself. But if we have to, we will destroy all of them. He's very solemn when he says this. Our other issue is that just east of here, in an area we like to call the Rock Blight, there seems to be some sort of a invasive evil. We send search parties in there to go explore the other residential areas that perhaps we could settle, and several of them have not returned. The one gnome that did return was babbling madly about a strange fog, and saying that the very earth around them was against them. We've sealed that area off as well for the time being, although we've merely collapsed the cave in both areas, so we could very easily clear that if there was any reason for us to do so. And he's kind of looking at you, and he's like, perhaps a group of brave adventurers such as yourself would be interested in helping out a settlement such as ours, and in exchange, perhaps we could affix you with a guide of some sort to escort you back to the surface as you say you wish to be.
Do you expect us to take care of both, one or?
Well, quite frankly, we don't really have the manpower to deal with either of them at this point. Most of our well and able-bodied young gnomes are out in the mines and in the roth fields. What we have here in the city is mostly young children, mothers, elderly, and of course our generally like our facilities staff, if you will, so a few soldiers and things, but we don't even really have a proper army. We only have a small militia in the town right now. We must kind of reserve them in case of any attacks. If you were to be able to discover, we don't need you to necessarily destroy, but to discover the way that the were-rats seem to be making their way in, or perhaps to parley with their leader. He may be willing to commit to some sort of a peace treaty. I'm not sure. Every time that I've attempted to enter their caverns, I am met with great hostility. Me and my men have tried at least 3 times now to go up there and have a civil discussion, but they don't seem to want any part of us being in their caverns. It's very territorial. As for the rock blight area, that is quite a bit of a mystery. I've told you everything that I know about it, and what we really need is information. If you were to be able to figure out what it is that's lurking there, report it back to me, I'm sure I could come up with an alternative solution.
What do you consider the greatest threat?
Right now, it seems like whatever's in the rock blight is fairly well contained. The were-rats, however, are becoming more bold with each maneuver that they perform. I would say perhaps the were-rats would be the first of your 2 tasks. What say?
I mean, this feels like a
Is there
lot.
a general
for...
direction that they seem to come from?
Yes, they're coming from the north. Some of the other locals like to call it the Gold Whisker Warrens.
I'm sorry, what were you
This
saying,
feels like a
Zohan?
lot. This feels like a lot just to let us tag along to go to a place that you guys are already fucking going. You know, you got nothing to make this worth their while. A couple spell stones would go a long way here.
So make me either a persuasion check or an intimidation check, your choice.
I think they're both the same.
If he makes an intimidation check, can I back him up?
Yeah, I mean, you can assist with either one.
D4 guidance.
If that's what you want.
Uh, 15 total.
And that was for which one? Intimidation or persuasion?
That was persuasion,
Okay.
but they both have a +1.
Okay. Well, that's more of his reaction to what you're attempting to do. So
I wasn't trying to intimidate him though.
okay. So
the guy comes up to like my fucking knee, so
yeah. So he kind of looks you up and down. He says, "Yes, I suppose what you say is true, although our forays to the surface are few and far between. To be entirely
we'd also
honest,
take one of those big stone guys too, instead of the spell gems.
No, Aaron says, whoa. Aaron also pipes up, said, no, spell gems are definitely part of this deal.
All right. But I can name him Munley.
Munley the third.
All right, so the Digger Matooks ask you for a moment to discuss it amongst themselves, and they sort of step out of the room. And you are left alone in their dining chamber, which is fairly well adorned with nice, general niceties, we'll say. Like, there's some candelabras in there, although the candles look like they have not been lit, so they're more likely for, like, decoration purposes. Um, Things like that. A few paintings that depict deep gnomes performing heroic acts, things like that.
I think I'm all for helping these guys, but still, like, I mean, they're going to the surface anyways, and they're acting like if we don't, solve all their fucking problems, that they're not going to go to the surface now. Like, I don't know.
Erin tends to agree with Johan. She was thinking that's quite a lot for just a guide.
No, I mean, you can fucking teleport, Aaron. we're out of the way things that screw up magic now, I think.
So the
Erin
Diggermatooks,
still really wants some gemstones.
Okay.
so the
we'll get-
Diggermatooks, they emerge from their drawing room, back to the dining room, and they both look at you and they say, "Well, we've come to an agreement. We will purchase 5 soul gems from Kazook ourselves, and we will arrange for him to offer a discount for any additional soul gems you wish to or spell gems, sorry, Morrowind thing. Any additional spell gems that you wish to purchase from him of 50%. That is quite a good deal. I'm sure that we'll hear about it from him. It's not exactly an easy person to get along with at times, but still, you would be doing us a great service indeed, and I understand your trepidation at not being offered a bit more for your services. After all, adventurers such as yourselves, we've been paying for many years now to perform tasks for us. As you can see, we are not exactly the most physically capable race compared to others, but nonetheless, we are stalwart in spirit, and we are confident that with the help of people such as you, we can make this city great again. Now, if you would please, here, and he sets down just this little piece of paper that basically lays out this for you, that says, like, in exchange for doing these 2 services, investigating these 2 incidences or whatever it is, that he would be willing to provide these goods and services back to you, giving you a guide to the surface, enough food and water to get you there if you need it, and perhaps even an escort of one of the large rock creatures to go along with you. He says, unfortunately, the rock creatures cannot be taken to the surface. They will literally explode.
That might be the coolest thing about them.
Yeah, they don't do well in direct sunlight.
Yeah, I'm suddenly
So-
interested.
So are they giving us the 5 stones plus a 50% discount, or just the 50%? They're buying the 5 stones
will-
to get us the 50.
They will give you the 5 stones, and then
Okay.
you will also get a 50% discount on whichever stones you wish to purchase.
It's not bad.
All right, let's go kill some rat people.
Yeah, Maggie's got enough of a personal history with were rats that she's like, she doesn't have to be convinced.
And then we'll stack their bodies to cover the hole that they made.
All right. So you guys would like to head to the north to the Goldblister Warrens?
Yep.
All right. So it's a brief travel. You guys actually on your way, you guys would pass right through the market. So you'd be able to kind of examine some of the stands that are here. What you notice is the distinct absence of any sort of like armory or weaponsmithing stands. There does not seem to be anything of that arrangement. You do notice one stand that seems to be selling like darts, daggers, small equipment, like small weapons, but that's it. Most of them you guys wouldn't use for more than like a toothpick, a hairpin, something like that. But they're adorable. But the one
Yeah,
stand,
Aaron is about to find. Aaron is entranced and finds them adorable.
yeah, the one stand that stands out above all others in this area is in fact Kazook's stand. It is one of the largest stands there, although it is also the most unoccupied. you have also not seen any non-deep gnomes in the city yet. So you think that maybe his stand is sort of like one of the main market draws for outsiders. So when he sees you, he immediately begins like almost a carnival barker routine. He jumps up from his chair, and you see this gnome is wearing this kind of purplish, like almost like a fedora. He has a long cape that drags on the ground behind him that is clearly still sized for a human. It's pretty tattered on the tail end of it, but above where it rides on the ground, it is luxurious. I mean, this is like a felt-lined, like heavy cloak. And he steps up and he's like, "Good day, travelers. Obviously, you've come to peruse Kazook's Emporium of Spell Gems. What can I do for you today?"
It's like, oh, actually, it's what we can do for you and your community.
So, oh, well, have you not come for my world-renowned spell gems? I have a vast selection.
Oh, sir. I'm very interested in your spell gems.
Well, let me explain how they work. You see, they're very simple. Are you a magic user then, I take it? I noticed you have that broom
Yes.
with you.
Yes, I am a magic user.
Ah, well, let me show you here. Do you have a simple spell that you'd be willing to cast for me? And he holds out one of these. It's a very small, kind of nondescript stone that's highly polished. It is not, it is not anything particularly, like, worthwhile looking. It is just literally like a polished piece of like tiger's eye or something like that. He says, if you would, please, cast just a simple spell. I believe your kind calls them cantrips. Just cast it right at the stone in my hand here. You'll see.
I cast shape water.
Okay. The stone immediately takes on this bluish hue, and you can see that wrapping around the stone almost appears to be like this kind of like faint glimmer that has this watery kind of aura to it. And he says, "There now. Now watch this." He takes a small bottle of water out from behind the counter, pours it into a cup, and then he says, "Abracadabra!" And the water immediately springs up and turns into like this, like a miniature water elemental, essentially. And it starts going, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal." And it's kind of dancing around in the cup.
Nice.
It lasts for a few moments, and then he waves his hand and it dispels. He says, "Simple as that. You store the spell in here, you cast the spell later." He says, "I have all manner from all powerful levels of spells all the way down to the simplest things such as this, for all different prices. A price point for every sort of adventurer."
How long does the stone last?
Well, if you don't break it or drop it, forever. As many uses as you wish. You just have to charge it ahead of time, that's all.
The stone can hold as many spells as you want?
Oh, no. Just one spell per stone per time.
Does only the person that charge it can use it?
No, absolutely not. You can charge a spell stone, and as long as the person who is holding the stone, or near the stone, within sight of it even, knows the command word for the stone, I'll give you a hint. It's always abracadabra. We like that word here. You are more than capable of casting it. Even a fine warrior such as yourself, who doesn't look like he dabbles in the ways of magic much, if I had to guess.
I can talk to an animal or two.
Ah, well, so what sort of spells would you be looking to store?
Oh, all sorts of spells.
Haste.
How much are your strongest stones?
So here's
I assume he doesn't know of our deal yet.
No, he has not been informed as of yet. Fortunately, I have to go back to skirts because that's where it has the spell gems thing. Scroll, 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 scroll. Scroll, scroll. I really need to add a search function on these books. It's the thing for spell gems. I saw it earlier, I swear. Let's do it this way instead. Over here. Yep. Then we'll search everything. Oh. Yeah. Ah. Okay, magic item, spell gem. This one. Alright. So here's how they work officially. A spell gem can contain one spell from any class's spell list. You become aware of the spell when you learn the gem's properties. While holding the gem, you can cast a spell from it as an action if you know the spell or if the spell is on your class's spell list. We can kind of waive that, the if you know the spell, because you know the spell if it's been put in there, essentially. So doing so doesn't require any components and doesn't require attunement. If the spell is of a higher level than you normally cast, just make an ability check using your spell casting ability to determine whether you cast it successfully. DC equals 10 plus the spell's level. On a failed check, spell disappears from the gem with no other effect. Each spell gem has a maximum level for the spell it can store. The spell level determines the gem's rarity and the stored spell's saving throw DC and attack bonus as shown in the spell gem table. So, prices. He has things all the way from uncommon, such as obsidian and lapis lazuli, rare, such as quartz, bloodstone, very rare, such as amber, jade, topaz, and legendary things like star ruby, ruby, and diamond. So in the order I just read them, it technically says obsidian is for cantrips, but, you know, it could also be tiger's eye, I guess. Basically, each one of those is representative of the level that it can be cast at. And you guys can actually just look up spell gem on D&D Beyond, and it should come up. It's like the second listing down, because the first one says spell gem amber. But each different type is representative of that level. So if you wanted to store a level 9 spell, you would have to use a diamond. If you wanted a level 8 spell, you would have to use a ruby. You can store lower spells in higher level gems, but not vice versa. So you can store a 9th level spell in a piece of amber because that's only rated for 4th level. They also have the spell save DCs are increasing based on level from around a 13 to a 19, and the attack bonus for said spells would be from around a +5 up to a +11. So these are very useful items. So you can get a quick view. Maybe I can post this into chat. Maybe. I don't know how well this is actually going to work. Not very, but oh, that's ugly, but there it is. So if you read it line by line, you can sort of get what it's supposed to say, but it's not formatted very well in chat.
Yeah.
If you just type in spell gem in the D&D Beyond inventory, like manage items, manage inventory,
yeah, it should
they'll pull up there.
Yep. Yeah, but we can definitely waive the if you know the spell or if it's on your class's spell list. I think that's unnecessary. Like, essentially, these things pretty much function like a reusable spell scroll. Because items in my game are OP.
I know I want one, I just don't know what I want on them.
Now, I would like to just point out, because again, I'm a kind and benevolent DM, Airyainth, you have the ability with one of the parts of the Rod of Seven Parts to cast any spell once a day. That's right along with that teleport ability.
Shit.
One of the abilities was to literally choose a spell out of all spells in D&D and cast it. That potentially could be very useful with these spell gems. Just saying.
Fair
Oh my
enough, and I
God.
completely forgot I had that ability.
Hey, we were
Thank
just
you for
talking about forgetting stuff like that earlier. That was totally in our conversation before the game.
Yeah, I read through that and
Need
put
to
a
see a
laughing
spell
face
gem
on
or
some of
time
it.
stop on it.
Yeah, or wish. Like, oh, we've got 15 wishes now. I thought you couldn't wish for more wishes. No, we didn't.
Yeah, I think that puts an exhaustion level on you though every time.
It does do something to you along those lines. Yeah, if I remember correctly, it has the potential to like drain your fucking hit points like bad. Like I think it can cut your max hit points in half or something.
Ugh.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
with,
quite what it was, but I know there's some nasty side effects from doing that. But part of the
and you have to roll for it too. And if you roll like a certain couple numbers, you can never cast it again.
yeah. All right. Ba-dum-dum-dum.
We probably want to wait until we're back from the werewolf situation to start snagging these anyway.
Sounds good. No reason to start blowing spells and storing
Unless
them right now.
there's
Yeah.
anything that we think might help us take care of them.
Well, it'd be better to charge them right before we're about to do a long rest.
Yeah.
True that.
Alrighty.
All right. So would you guys?
Tell
Mosey
what's his name that
on.
we're very interested, but we have stuff to do first.
We'll be back.
Ah, yes. Just window shopping today. I see. Excellent. Well, I'll be sure to have my price list ready for you when you come back.
Thanks, boss.
That was weird. It was a random ding. I don't know what it was. Okay. So you guys begin to head further north. You pass the gate yet again, and apparently the Jiggermatooks have sent some sort of an emissary to the area where the Gold Whisker Warrens are blocked off, and they have begun the removal process of these stones, which is happening in a incredibly fast manner due to several of these large rock monsters assisting, just taking giant scoops of these loose stones and rocks out of the way, and very quickly, within maybe 15 or 20 more minutes, a passageway has been created for you to enter the Gold Whisker Warrens. Large steel doors are pushed out of the way, and as you enter a small chamber, a pair of the kind of guards that are standing in the area look at you and they say, "Good luck. Just knock 3 times on the door if you have to come back this way."
Oh, okay.
So you guys are now left in. This is the antithesis of what it looked like inside of inner Blingdenstone. It is now very dark. There is no natural light, as much of the phase rest has been blocked out from this area due to the actual isolation of Blingdenstone. And the former tenants kind of ridding themselves of many of those plants as they did not want the wild magic effects to take hold in their city. So you can consider 1,000 years worth of anti-cultivation have happened through here before the original inhabitants were driven out. As you enter, scroll. I should use my page down button. That'll be much faster. Click. All right. Um, I did today. Haha. Alright. Everyone make me a perception roll.
Okay.
Just perception skill check.
Okay.
21.
26.
Oh.
I
Nine.
actually I got a 20 plus my
17 altogether.
Okay. And what'd you get, Benadia?
9.
Okay. As you all begin to walk into the room, everyone except for Venadia stops very quickly as they look down at the floor and realize that there is a very, very noticeable seam. Venadia, however, is kind of looking ahead, and perhaps because of her kind of youthful attitude or her really disdain for danger, perhaps, she steps forward and immediately triggers a spiked pit trap. Make me either an athletics. No, I'm sorry. Make me a dexterity saving throw. DC on it is going to be 15.
Okay. 22.
Okay. You are able to catch your balance at the last moment and narrowly avoid falling into a 10-foot deep pit that is lined with what appear to be some sort of fungal wood spikes at the bottom of it. There is a
Sounds
small path around the outside of the chamber that leads either to the east or to the west. And you guys are able to cross this pit relatively safely. Which direction would you like to head next?
Sorry, where did we just come from? 26 or 24? Or wait, no.
You guys just went from 5, you went up through this little passage here
Mm-hmm.
into 23. So the pit trap was basically like right here in the corner. Like right in that narrow spot where you could get through.
Where does it smell more like were wraps?
Roll me a perception check.
That was not a good roll. Or wait a second, I got hell of luck. That again. All right, that's good. 26 altogether.
Okay. So off to the east, you smell what essentially smells like a refuse pile, while as blowing in from the west, you smell something more along the lines of what smells like an animal den of some sort. Like it smells more like kind of like a litter box. So you got trash heap or litter box.
Litter box it is.
I was thinking trash heap. I can commune with nature if you want.
Are we in a forest, or how would you describe our terrain?
Right now, it is relatively barren stone caverns.
It's the Underdark.
I guessed.
Yeah, the height of these caverns is a little bit lower than the previous ones, so like, whereas you can still see some large stalagmites, it is not like thousands of feet in the air above this. It is now down to like a few hundred feet. The walls generally are straight up and down smooth as well. Looks like the product of 1,000 years of mining, essentially, where they left certain areas alone and for whatever reason and mined around them.
Yep.
So did you guys come up with a decision of, do you want to go to the litter box or the trash heap?
If you guys want, we can take 11 minutes and I can cast Commune with Nature and I can instantly gain knowledge up to 3 facts of our choice about pretty much anything in this area.
I like it.
So it's like 20 questions, but
down.
only 3. Okay.
Yeah. So in caves and other natural underground settings, the radius is limited to 300 feet. When I'm on land outdoors, it's up to 3 miles. So it's less of a range. So for 300 feet.
That's okay, because each one of these is only 25 or 35 squares respectively, so that times 5, that's well under 300. You're like
Okay.
100 or 125 feet away from these things.
So I can instantly gain knowledge up to 3 facts of my choice of any of the following subjects: trained bodies of water, prevalent plants, minerals, animals, or peoples, powerful celestials, fate fiends, elementals, or undead, influence from other planes of existence and buildings. So first I'm going to ask: is there any more traps in the train, and like the location of the traps in any of the train around here?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Would I get a sense where it is, or?
I would say that, yeah, it kind of would give you an innate sense that as you get closer to said traps, you would get advantage on any perception checks too.
Okay. I can find certain animals in this area, so I'm gonna be specifically looking for were-rats.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a little ping that goes off, right around where it says Area 25. And it's like a
Okay.
big ping. There's a large, like if you were mentally picturing this cavern in your head, you would see a big circle right over here.
Okay. And then, lastly, I guess I would try to determine where there are entrances into Blingdenstone.
Hmm. Okay.
Very good. That's awesome.
Let's see. Check something real quick. You said up to 300 feet, right?
Yeah.
300 divided by 5 would be 60. 60 of these squares. 60. You do not detect their entrance anywhere.
Okay.
So it seems like it would be outside of that radius.
All right. I relay everything I just heard.
And I'm sorry, you saw a big circle over here in regards to where rats and a smaller circle.
Okay. Because there's an advance party, but there's a much larger settlement of were-rats up ahead. Also, watch out. There's going to be more traps. New guy, go first.
Adrian smiles and says, "Certainly." Begins walking forward.
Just kidding.
I grab him on the shoulder and pull him back and say, "No, it's okay."
Just kidding, fresh meat. Let's go.
Dragonborn barbarian be our rogue.
Alright, so are you guys heading west then?
Yeah.
How are you approaching this? Are you approaching like stealthily? Are you approaching like, we're gonna fucking kill you guys? Like, I don't know, how are you doing this?
I mean, yeah, I would say stealthily, especially if I know there's like a smaller party up there to try to get.
Okay.
Whatever looks the most badass if you were to slow it down.
Excellent. Yeah.
Stealthily. I mean, yeah.
Are the
Yeah.
Still Team 6 style.
Are the deep also like? Do they have dark vision and we benefit from having lights on, or do we want to keep lights off for sneakiness?
Well, if you're trying to be stealthy, you would definitely benefit from lights off. They
But do they have?
were-rats do have dark vision, I believe. I think.
So we're not really gonna benefit a whole lot from.
Pretty much everything down the Underdark. I'm
Yeah,
sure,
it's
has
most things that live in the
information
Underdark can see better than you can.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're gonna use some bright light to
Yeah,
fuck this shit
I was
up.
gonna say it's not even like dark vision. It's like heat vision.
All
Rather
right.
than like night vision.
So we'll keep it off, but we'll stun them with it if we need to, I guess, right?
hmm
And whoever's got dark vision can go up front.
That'd be, I guess, me and
Just
Aaron.
assume I'm on my broom and I'm up as high as I can go
So
and just very
actually,
quiet.
Aaron, do you want to be in the front?
Yeah, I'm fine with
'Cause I
that.
was gonna say one of us should be in the back if we're the only two that have dark vision.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely need like a torch or something. So
Oh yeah, and what spell did you use that we all had the torch flames hovering around us?
dancing
Um,
lights, I think maybe.
Was it
yeah,
that?
I
Yeah,
think it was.
Maggie
we
can.
could do that too.
Yeah, your pitch black maneuver.
No. The dancing lights was the thing that
Oh, with the 4 torches, right?
yeah, they had like we each had a different color or something.
Okay. So just everybody give me a quick stealth check. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, that was sleight of hand.
Oh wow. I got a 19.
13.
I got a 13.
Oop. Luck that one too. With luck, do I re-roll both? Or no? Anyway, all right. 9 plus whatever my d4 is.
You mean if you had advantage on stealth checks, do you reroll both with luck?
I have disadvantage.
So
eh,
no, you actually you have like super advantage if you use a luck point because then you roll 3 times and pick whatever one you want. The way it's written,
oh shit! All right, cool.
Oh, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. How do I see
at least according to the Wizard of the Coast Twitter, they said it's like turn disadvantage into super advantage with a luck point.
that? Nice.
It
All right.
does
Well.
make sense.
All right. So that's 13 plus. So 14 stealth.
Okay. So yeah, you are able to remain pretty quiet. You're fairly certain that nobody has detected you. And as you advance up this chamber, you then see what appears to be it looks like 4 of these they just look like regular deep gnomes to you. Although Tohan, your nature commune with nature is still kind of pinging them as being these were-rats you were looking for. And you can see that they're engaged in a incredibly animated, we'll say, game of dice. And they are rolling these dice like nobody's business.
Mhm.
Let's see. So who was in the lead, Venadia or Airyainth?
Airyainth was.
Okay, Airyainth, make me a
Um,
perception check.
Twenty.
Nice.
Dirty 20.
Okay. You notice one of these 4 deep gnomes is none other than your spy friend. He has somehow made his way in here and is rolling dice with these other 3.
I use our mental channel to relay this to everybody.
Sweet. Let's roll some dice.
Yeah, you hear one of the group yell, Yahtzee! Scoop up a large pile of silver coins.
Mhm.
And Yahtzee for money. Now there's a game. I'd play the shit out of that. Alright, how would you guys like to go about approaching them? You are clearly would have a surprise element. Everyone would be able to get off a surprise round. If there was combat planned, or if you plan on taking a more political stance here, then now would be the time to announce yourself, I suppose.
You could. It's interesting that our spy friend is hanging out with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to circle around and cover any like escape entrances to the other side. That way, if one of them tries to bolt, they have to get by me.
Okay. So yeah. Roll me one additional stealth check. We'll call this your action for your
24.
well, or at least we'll call it your movement, I suppose. Yeah, 24 gets you. You can definitely get up to here without them noticing. You will say that they're, I don't know, they're somewhere in this area. So you're able to kind of sneak around them without them noticing you, as it is quite dark in this cavern. Although, as you approach this narrow space here, I'll let you guys see that, but there's a very narrow passage of maybe 20 feet ahead of you. You can actually see lights coming from in here, as though it is lit by some dim torches or something. So the light issue is probably less of an issue up ahead. But you are able to successfully stay in the shadows and kind of get on these guys' flank.
Yeah, that's probably all I'm gonna do, because I'm guessing we're gonna be talking to these guys and see if they're friendly or not.
Okay.
Maggie, let's see. Is it so we don't have a light right now, right? So she can't like see the members of her party.
No. Well, the members that are within like 5 or so feet of you, you can probably still see, but you can only make out a vague outline just from a little bit of residual light that's making its way through. But anybody outside of that, like you actually wouldn't be able to even see the party of were-rats that are. You'd hear the dice and kind of know their general direction and stuff, but
I
Well-
used the mental channel to ask everybody what they want to do and if they want to approach with lights.
Maggie suggests that she use a sending spell with their guide and just ask, not tell them that they're there, but to say, how how did you get to the rare rats from whatever it's called from the city, and what are you doing there? I mean, she'll she's like, hey friend, how did you get there and what are you doing there?
so she's saying this, I'm sorry, out loud or with a.
She's like quickly checking through the Reggie channel, like, hey, can I, or what do you think about me casting this sending spell
I got
To
you.
the
To us.
to the
to the guide, just to kind of see, like,
Oh.
is he like a secret
Spy
where,
gnome.
is he like
Mhm.
what, just to kind of see how he reacts. So do that.
doesn't matter to me. I mean, it might
Sure.
be worth it to see what he's doing there.
All right,
Sure.
she'll
Yeah.
do that.
Okay. So you quietly cast this spell, and in the middle of one of his rolls, Qualen suddenly stands up straight, and he says, "Wait, which one of you said that?" The other three were-rats that are all still dressed as deep gnomes, as it were. They all look at him, and one of them's like, "The hell are you talking about? One of you just asked how I got here. What? Who said that?" He begins looking around now, and now he's like examining pretty actively, looking to see who said what. He does not, however, seem to be able to discern any of you being there. He's just kind of perplexed that somebody just was like, how'd you get here? And he's like, what do you mean?
Airyainth rolls her eyes and whispers, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
So for as far as we can tell, he feels comfortable with these guys.
Yeah, he seems to be kind of chummy with the were-rats.
Good to know.
Aaron suggests, why don't we just go try and talk to these guys and see what's going on? We have Tohan in a good position if things go south.
Give it a shot. I'm not scared. Slice them the fuck up.
I float over within 10 feet of them and cast dancing light for myself.
Okay.
With the ability with hold for everybody else.
Okay. So as you have one of these lights appear above your head, all four of these, well, the three were-rats and Qualen, all sort of jump startled and then look up. The were-rats immediately begin to pull their arms out, and Qualen's like, hello, hi, hey, well, I didn't expect to find you this far north in the city. What brings you up here?
I was just going to ask you the same thing. How did you even get here?
Oh, well, you see, and one of the were-rats looks at Qualen and he's like, he comes here every Thursday for dice. What's it to you? Qualen's like,
Every Thursday, huh?
Yes, all right, let me come clean. You see, I'm not really a spy, he says, and at this point his deep gnome disguise sort of dissolves away and he goes back to looking like a regular gnome. He says,
Shocking.
I
I
have,
don't say that. I'm still hidden, but
he says, I have a bit of a penchant for dice games, and as it were, I owe some money to some people in my hometown, and they will not let me in the game anymore, and these fine folks have agreed to let me sit in on once a week, so I make the journey. You know, I have my ways of getting to and from the surface when need be, but I find these fellows to be quite fine company, if you must know. I'm sure you're wondering why I have such distaste for those deep gnomes that live in Blingdenstone, and quite frankly, I think that you would be better to ask. I think you would be better to ask Chipgrin himself. He says, "Please, why don't you come with us, and we'll all go talk."
Maggie
Hi.
looks at their weapons and says, "We're not a hostile presence, but it seems you're
As
treating."
Maggie speaks, her light goes on.
Oh,
So
yeah, she's like, "We're not a hostile presence, but it seems you're ready to become one."
Qualen looks at the other were-rats and he says, "I don't believe they will attack us. I think we're okay here." The other were-rats look at him for a moment. One of the were-rat that spoke to Qualen previously looks at the four of you that he can see, still does not notice Tohan, and he says, "Well then, if you came to talk to Chipgrin, he's right this way. Come on then." They sheathe their weapons, and he begins leading individually each of them through this passage, provided that you guys don't attack them or anything. They're just going to head up through there.
I imagine. Have you guys seen the scene in Atlanta where the dude's got like a mask over his face and like a knife and a plate of brownies? I'm kind of imagining Tohan just like standing in the shadows, like ready to,
Still eating salt.
yeah, like puts his weapon away as like salt.
Salt anyone?
Yeah, I still don't think they even noticed Tohan as they walked by, honestly. He had a pretty high stealth roll.
Nice.
I use the mental channel to ask everybody what they want to do.
Yeah, Maggie's following as soon as they go.
Johan, you gonna stay hidden?
I'm just following you guys. So
Yep, same.
Alright. So as you guys all begin to make your way into this cavern, you can now see pretty clearly as soon as you step into this cavern. Everyone roll me a perception check, except for Tohan, roll me one with advantage.
$13.
That's close.
26.
11 for me.
Okay. Airyainth, you'll actually get a pass because you're on your broom, and there's no way you could trigger a tripwire. Everyone else, though, stops just short of a tripwire that is rolled across this narrow space, and you carefully step over it. And it looks as though this would be attached to some sort of a mechanism to fire out some sort of dart or projectile at anyone who is not wary of it. And as soon as all of you have stepped past, you hear Qualen call back, "Oh, watch out for the tripwire, by the way." So as you enter this cavern, you can now see, one, you can smell an even worse litter box smell. It smells terrible. Like if you've ever had pet rats and like you didn't clean the cage for like a week, it smells like that, except for a lot worse. And in this massive hall that you are in is a small crowd of these creatures. Most of the assembled creatures look like deep gnomes, but some have very rat-like features, including a particularly fat specimen standing in front of the others, smiling at you with jagged buck teeth. "Peace," the big were-rat says. He takes a step forward, his arms extended and his hands open. "Chipgrin's the name. I'm chief of the Gold Whisker clan. Shall we talk?"
Well met, friend.
He begins to climb a set of stairs that kind of leads up to a natural dais. Somewhere's up in this area here. Kind of see it. And it's overhung by this like kind of low ceiling, so it's sort of a nice little like throne setup that he's got. And he sits down, and the chair he sits in is obviously like not great, but it's made up to look like some sort of a fancy throne. Like it's got some shitty rugs thrown over it or something. And the floor is actually covered with a carpet of green moss that kind of dulls the sound of your feet on the stones. The were-rat's chief sits on this chair, flanked by two giant rats. He says, "Let's get down to brass hobnails, then. You were sent by the Digamatox because they want us out, right? Right? Well, they might get their wish soon enough. But in a way,
Now, hold on. They don't necessarily want you out. They would like to speak with you and parlay.
He says, "Yes, well, they may get their wish, but probably not in a way they're likely to be cheery about." He says, "You see, they're not the only ones facing these attacks by oozes as of late. We're really quite close to leaving the settlement here and finding somewhere else to live. You see, I've learned something that I think that they don't know, or at least they don't suspect. I remember their Pudding King from when I first came here. You see, he worked in the tunnels when he first arrived. My kin saw him. I know who he is and what he's doing, and most of all, where he can be found. If you and the Digamatox want, I can take you straight to him. That's Pudding King. You see, he seems
What
to
is
be
this?
in control of all these oozes in the area.
I was right.
You were absolutely right. But I can't just tell you.
Interesting. If you were to do this, would you be willing to talk with the leaders of the other gnomes and try to come to some sort of compromise for each other?
Make me a persuasion check.
26.
Okay. He says, well, you seem like affable enough folks. But I must say, as of late, there's been some odd discrepancies amongst some of the deep gnomes that have returned here. Perhaps you noticed on your trek into the city. Any of the outlying lands, did you notice anything strange about any of the gnomes? You see, my kin have encountered a few of these, the miners and some of the farmers, and whereas when they first appeared, they were not suspicious of our kind, as we had not done anything to accost them. As of more recently, they've begun attacking us, hunting us down, acting as though we've been doing something to offend them. I don't understand it. We
They
mostly keep
believe
to
that you've been.
ourselves.
They believe that you've been sneaking in and stealing from them, and they also believe you've been attacking them at times too.
Strange, he says.
Perhaps somebody is trying to turn you both against each other.
I can assure you most undoubtedly that I have not ordered any attacks on the southern part of the city. He turns and he addresses the crowd in front of him and he says, have any of you entered the southern part of the city? And then you kind of see all these gnomes and were-rats, and they're kind of all looking down at the floor, shaking their head like, no, I don't know, nothing I've been doing.
I just go.
He begins to look, and
They roll like perception or something to see if their denial is credible.
yeah, roll me a perception check.
I have no idea. Well, 12 altogether.
He says, this seems to be a bit of a mystery, doesn't it? He says, I will say, this all started fairly recently, right around the time you began showing up. And he points at Qualen, who is kind of hiding in the back of this crowd here.
I turn and go to Waylon, well, because she already dislikes him and doesn't trust him very much. Do you know anything of this?
What, me? No, I told you, I'm just a degenerate gambler. Fuck, he says, and just starts running, at which point a pair of were-rats tackle him and begin dragging him up the stairs to this dais, where Chiprin is sitting. And he says, I don't think you are who you say you are, Qualen. Who are you working for? And at this point, Qualen begins to laugh. First it's kind of a chuckle, and then it becomes more guttural, and his throat kind of gets this like deep gurgly noise to it. And
Oh boy.
Qualen begins to sort of melt in front of you. and the laugh turns to more of a gargle and a gurgle, and he retains a bit of humanoid shape, although he expands, becomes a bit taller, and he says, "You will not stop the will of Jubilex. He will destroy Zugmatoy and prevent the wedding. There is nothing you fools can do." And at that point, Qualen turns full on into a giant pile of goo. Now, unfortunately for the two were-rats that are holding him, this pile of goo happens to be highly acidic. And it begins kind of launching pseudopods out at the closest rats that are near him, striking several of them, before Chipgrin grabs a torch off the wall and quickly sets him ablaze. His screams begin echoing through the cavern, although these screams are more still gargly, just bubbly noises. It just sounds like if you're squishing like the kids like slime that they make now, that shit. Yeah, gack, exactly, or phloem, or any of those things. It's like making that like noise. He says it would seem that there is some sort of a spy in our midst. Do you know of this Jubilex? And he looks at you for 5, really.
I think
Buddy, I didn't even know who you were until like an hour ago.
He says Jubilex is known by many here in the Underdark. Said to be the demon lord of ooze. Very 1989 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh no, the ooze?
Yeah. He says that he doesn't know what he was referring to when he said stop the wedding, but he says Zugmatoy is another demon lord. Zugmatoy is known to be the demon lord of fungus, and Zugmatoy and Jubilex are known to be bitter enemies, according to the legends. Perhaps something has happened to allow the two of them to come into contact with each other, and there is some greater scheme going on here in the Underdark? I know not, and I know not why he would wish to cause problems between the deep gnomes and my clan. If you would, return to the Diggermatoks. Sorry. Tell them I will parley with them. We must meet on even ground. Perhaps the entrance that you came in from.
Maggie gives him kind of a like friendly conspiratorial grin and is like, "We heard you found a way into the city through or a different way into the city. That's a clever move. Is that true?"
Well, he says it's not really that clever. We can all turn into rats. Rats are small.
And have you been entering the city?
We have needs from time to time, yes. Clean water, food. We always try to leave something, though. If we take, we exchange. Perhaps they are not happy with our exchanges, but yes, we have taken some things from them. We just have not been attacking anyone. There's been no violence on our part.
As he's saying this, she starts casting her create food and water so that by the end there's a feast there for them.
At this, Chipgrin's eyes grow quite wide, and he looks and he's like, "That is a fantastic trick. I would love to know how to do that."
This is the power of my lady Hestia.
Perhaps we can speak more on your Lady Hestia in the future. This seems like a skill that at least one of my people should learn.
I agree. We'll return to the city and arrange a meeting in that middle ground. Your traps give us pause. Will you ensure that we're not that we don't suffer from them?
Oh, yes, of course. I will send two of my kin to make sure that you are aware of their presence. Although I think you've already seen the two that we had set up, if I'm not mistaken. My alarm should go off when you step near that pit trap. And clearly, at least one of you would be sleeping right now if you had hit the tripwire. But yes, I will have some men escort you back to the entrance. And yeah, so he does. He fulfills his word to you, and they are quite happy to partake in your feast, Maggie. Many of the rats scarfing down whatever they can get their hands on. Not necessarily being polite eaters, but not trying to injure each other or shove each other out of the way so much as just being really grabby. So you are able to make your way safely back to the entrance where the were-rats would leave you. Qualen is, of course, no more.
See you, Quaalude.
Mm,
Back over here. So we can fast track a bit of this if you guys want. It is getting late, so I can at least get you to a reasonable plot point to stop at. So yeah, you guys are able to return to the Diggermatovs, Matox, for that, and inform them that a parley has been requested from Chipgrin, and assuming that you relay his message about the Pudding King, they become very interested. So the king there, the male Diggermatov, he essentially says to you, well, it would seem that we've traded one problem for another. We obviously still need our problem in the rock blight taken care of, but it would seem that perhaps we need a bit more information about this fool that lives to the north. I would leave it as your choice if you would rather continue on your mission to discover the evil that lies within Rockblight, or perhaps you could do some reconnaissance for us and check the area where Chipgrin says that he lies. I'll leave it up to you. In the meantime, please feel free to stay at the Foamy Mug for the night. Of course, your meals will be on us, and tomorrow we can parley with the clan leader. And he sort of says that with a little bit of distaste, but he's like, it seems like he is genuinely interested in parleying for peace.
Could we perhaps, since we'll be resting for the evening, could we perhaps have a few of those spell stones since we've gotten a large chunk of our uh, things done?
He sort of looks at you for a moment, and he's like, yes, you seem like the type that will honor your bargain if I pay you partial now. Here, it says. And he reaches down and takes a small box from beneath a nightstand or like a table, and he lifts it up, and he has about 6 of these soul gems in a box. And he reaches down and he takes out what is a level 1 and a level 2 spell gem and places them on the table, and he says, these are now yours. I will give you the other 3 when you complete one more quest for me. Perhaps you would even like to earn more. Perhaps if you stay for just a bit longer before your return to the surface, you could solve both of our other problems.
Perhaps we'll consider it if the spell gems you give us in the future are far stronger than these.
Oh, yes, of course.
Or at least we get a discount on buying the other ones.
Yes. And Kazook has been informed, so if you wish to stop by the market, that is in full effect now. So yeah, you guys would be free to buy any number of them. The way I was going to price them out is they are going to be 500 gold per level that you'd want to buy, starting with the exception of the cantrips. Cantrips would be 250 gold for one of the obsidians, 500 for a level 1, and then 1,000 for a level 2, 1,500 for level 3, etc., etc. So I will leave that up to you guys. He has a large quantity of these things. Like, he's probably got 1,000 of these spell gems at his stall.
So are those the are 50% off prices?
Yeah, because I was going to do 1,000, but you guys negotiated.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're not cheap. They're a fairly powerful item. I mean, but for you guys,
I kind of figured.
1,000 gold for you guys is kind of like spit in a bucket. It's not really much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, how many diamond ones do you want to buy?
Yeah.
Right.
We'll take them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what's that?
Alright.
So what is it? It's
Maybe.
5 grand for a diamond?
Like 4,500, I think.
Okay.
500 for level 1, 1,000 for level 2.
Bring me all your diamond spell gems.
Yeah. How many
I'll
do
stop you there.
How many
probably-
do you have?
You probably thought I said bring me a lot of diamond spell gems. What I said was bring me all your diamond spell gems.
So for the level 9 spell gems, he actually only has 10 of them. So
Let's take all of them.
that would be a cost of, what, 45,000 gold.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't get the sense that we're going to be hurting for, like, that we need these immediately. I think if we can get them free, we might as well. But
Well, the other problem
I don't
is-
think they were giving us any good ones. I think they're going to be giving like 5 lower ones. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah, pro tip, the other 3 that you saw, or the other 4 that you saw in the box were then a level
There's
3, 4, and 5.
Obsidian. Oh.
but we can put any level spells in the diamond ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I bet you they have good resale value on the surface world if we wanted to.
Oh,
get...
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should clean him
get
out of
the-
his whole stock.
Yeah,
Resell
these pretty much go, like, you're getting them at half price. On the surface, they would go for double price because they would be a very rare item, obviously.
I
it.
was,
Guys, let's get into the gem business. Why not?
I was thinking,
No-
like,
no
that's our
reason
new.
not to be
Yeah.
gem brokers, that's right.
We should. Why not? We got
Yeah.
bags of holding and all kinds of shit.
Oh hell yeah.
You guys are approaching, like, you're like above average level adventurers now. Like, you're middle high tier.
Should we pull our gem collection out too and be like, oh cool, want to see ours too?
Let's do some trading.
Yeah, coincidentally, as your DM, I feel the need to inform you that completing both of these quests may earn you another level,
Oh.
which I think would put you guys at, what, 13?
Yeah.
Yep. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah. Should we leave it right here for now and make some decisions?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's fine with me. I think this is a pretty
Alright.
good stopping point. You guys, you could obviously go to the foamy mug.
At level 14, I get wings and I can fly. So
Nice.
So the
That's a dragonborn thing.
no, it's my totemic attunement because I have I took bear totem for the type of because I'm a totem barbarian. There's a couple different types, but I was kind of just like homebrewing it to be like a dragon style whatever. So I took bear, and then I took owl, and then the other one's eagle.
Nice. Damn.
Very cool.
So yeah, you guys would
That's not-
actually you would get some rumors at the foaming mug that I can inform you of as well. One is that Blingdenstone's ghost problem is getting worse, and there are even spirits haunting the catacombs. You already kind of did that. The second one is that there was a crazy deep gnome back in the first days of reclamation who disappeared. Some of the scouts claim to have seen him skulking around unrecovered areas of the settlements. you kind of suspect that this might be the Pudding King that you've been introduced to vaguely. The Stoneheart Enclave is closing in on a solution to the threat of Ogremock's Bane. This is what you are informed that they have been calling this unknown evil in the rock Blight, and that earth elementals seem to go mad whenever they go near it. People are divided about what to do about the were-rats living in those caverns. Some want them out, while some propose an alliance for mutual defense. The only other patron of the Foaming Mug happens to be a merchant from Gracklestug, which I believe is the giant city. He says that there is an influx of surface world coins there, but nobody seems to know where they're coming from. In the city of Gracklestug, that is. I don't know if that's interesting to you at all or not. And the final rumor is that a deep gnome caravan returning from White Shell Mines encountered a parade of dancing myconids. Through their report spores, the myconids told the gnomes about a wedding celebration, which is strange considering that myconids don't celebrate or have weddings. Myconids being the mushroom people that live in the Underdark. So that syncs with what you have just heard out of the mouth of your friend Qualen, who exploded in a pile of goo. So that's pretty much the end of tonight, I think.
All right. Cool one.
Oh, rumors. Yeah. That's funny because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't know if they're gonna want to fight the were-rats. I don't know what they're gonna do. And it I love the way this adventure is set up because it gives a lot of options for me as a DM to and a lot of options for you as players, to kind of either you guys honestly, this is a great city if you're a bunch of murder hobos to rob blind and kill everybody because they're pretty much defenseless. It looks like they have a lot of stuff set up to repel outside invaders, but once you're on the inside, they're fucked. You guys could probably kill all 300 of these deep gnomes without much problem. And I didn't know how it was gonna go. I'm like, I don't know. So.
Well, I don't think Airyainth or Maggie would go for that. So.
Nah.
I don't know if anyone would go for that.
Yeah, just depends on how fed up with
We're not really a
I like
murder hobo.
156. By 156 or so, I'd be like, guys, I don't know, I'm starting to feel a little sick.
Well, if
Why
Johannes
I write about this?
party, he'd probably be pretty fine off anyway.
Gotta kill whole families. Don't want to leave orphans.
Yeah. All right, guys. I don't know if I'll see you next week or not, but
yeah. Actually, you guys want to take a vote on that as to whether we're gonna skip next week because Mother's Day and also there's a WWE pay-per-view on there.
Yeah, I think we might as well.
So we'll say come back in
That's
2
fine.
weeks, and we can finish up Blingdenstone, and then you guys can haul ass back to the surface and see what havoc the Umbra has wreaked, and whether or not Tiamat is in fact flying around in Faerun now. That should be fun.
That's right. Forgot about Umbras.
That should be super fun for me.
All
right, I will see all you guys in 2 weeks.
See y'all.
Sounds good. Everybody have a good week and everything.
Yep, stay safe, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
Good
Bye.
night.